Hey there, Pilgrims. Welcome back to Venture Pill.
Yeah, we're switching things up for this week's dose. We're going to discuss some updates for the pill as Brandon and I look ahead to a new era.
Yep, and with that, we'll take y'all down memory lane for a quick stroll and talk about Austin and how it's changed over our nearly 8 years in this wonderful city.
Yeah, gonna miss it. We're going to wrap up with a deeper reflection and look back on the journey building this podcast and this great community, specifically over the last 2 years and some change.
Super excited for this week's episode. Without further ado, let's get on into it, partner.
Here we go.
You see here, kid, you gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump.
This is Venture Pill, your weekly dose of startups and venture capital. We break down recent startups in the news and interview founders and investors to help you stay informed in the evolving world of venture.
All right, so yeah, mixing it up a bit here, we wanted to sort of reflect as our time is actually coming to at least a temporary end here in Austin together, which is wild to say.
It is wild to say. I like to think both you and I have dreams or aspirations to potentially return back to the city, whether in a full-time capacity or in at least some kind of nomad work from home, work from Austin situation. But yeah, we just wanted to let our listeners know as moving forward, you might see some of our social media and episodes being done from afar. And that is because Sam and I are taking the pod long distance for now. And they say distance makes the heart grow fonder, which I'm sure it will in our case. But I guess I'll start with my brief update is that in August, so a couple months from now, I actually plan to take my talents up north to New York City. I will be
Big city, baby!
the big city, the Big Apple. I will be starting an MBA program, part-time MBA program at NYU, keeping my full-time role with Alumni Ventures intact as well. Extremely excited. Got most of my family out there, which was a big influence in the decision as well. And a bulk of our friends from Texas and just from other walks of life live out there as well. So a lot of excitement around that move, but certainly mixed emotions because I am a little devastated, honestly, to be leaving Austin. I know you feel the same way and you'll talk about it in a minute, but this has become home to both of us and just such an amazing, special place. And it always will be. It's got a special place in both of our hearts. Such fun, formative years, 4 years of college at UT, a whole second 4-year period of post-college, early adulting, which has been an amazing run as well.
The second college. We're senioritis in the second college. It's different.
We're in senior spring right now, right in the thick of it.
About to graduate and head home for the summer. It is bittersweet, and that is the word I've said so many times.
So many times.
Because there's no better word to say it. I mean, we both look ahead and look forward to moving to a new community, and a little bit of change is always good. We're going to be leaving a lot behind. We know that too, but always looking to come back and forth. And so, yeah, for me, heading back to Chicago, which same deal, back to where my family is. And of course, a lot of friends from growing up. I'm real eager to get there, but sad to leave this place behind. This is a special place where, like you said, we went to college. We had some formative years, experienced a lot together, but specifically, like, bringing it back to this podcast this was the ideal place to start a podcast like this. Network, meet all these cool and really open-minded people, building innovative things, really open to helping us grow and giving us advice and coming on the show and sharing it and spreading the word. There was no better place to have started Venture Pill than in Austin, Texas.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking right now just back to our South by Southwest street interviews. Like, that was awesome. Such a great experience and opportunity and mass networking connection, an opportunity that we took advantage of. We met some awesome people then. But yeah, and we're about to get deeper into reflecting on the podcast and everything. But obviously, it's forced us to keep a pulse on all things venture capital, which has been great and informative. I know both you and I have a passion there. But truly, I think at least for me, when I was visualizing us starting this podcast, I didn't anticipate this benefit, which is the awesome and growing network of entrepreneurs and investors and operators, just people adjacent to the space that we've built all over the country, really, and some international guests, but specifically in Austin. And like you said, great place. A lot of like-minded folks here, young, hungry, ambitious, tech-forward type of people. So just being able to, we already had such a great network intact just from going to school here, but to be able to supplement that with this whole new wave of people has been an incredible part of the journey.
And I feel like neither of us would have ever imagined being here, at least for me, maybe I'm speaking for both of us, being here to this point in our lives past school. And for me, at least, I definitely would have never thought I would have a podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it never was a goal until it was, you know? But I'm so glad that we did. But I think maybe taking it a little bit back down memory lane, like we said, curious, Brando, what drew you to Austin in the first place?
Yep. I will take the first stab at this one and you brainstorm as I answer. But it's an interesting story. I really owe it all to my sister, or at least I owe her for putting it on my radar, as she was one of the first people from my small town high school to go to the University of Texas.
Just a small town boy.
Just a small town boy. We had a well in the middle of the village. But yeah, it really wasn't on the radar. Most people from my area tend to gravitate towards Big Ten schools, right? Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, those types of schools. Obviously not a knock on those great institutions as well. But throughout the years while she was here, I was in late middle school, early high school, and would just always look to get a flight to Austin whenever there was a parents' weekend, mom's weekend, dad's weekend, whatever it may be. I always worked my way into the equation there. And so over time, even way back then, and Austin has changed so much. This is like a good 10 years ago plus at this point. But even then, I could just tell that in terms of a city and a place that will give me a little bit of a culture shock, teach me about a different way of life, Austin's great for that. And also, it's a good school. It's in the middle of a great growing city like Austin. The weather is good. The food is great. The football and the sports are great. Really just realized that it had everything I could have possibly been looking for in a college. And it actually still wasn't like my early decision, first choice school, but I applied to McCombs knowing it was a reputable business school. And I got into Texas way before I heard back from any other school. So I even had, this is, senior year of high school now. I had a lot of time to slowly just picture myself being in Austin. And the more time that passed where UT stayed as the top option and the best option I'd gotten into, I was just like, why reinvent the wheel, make this difficult? I already know I love the city and the school, and it's a good school and everything. I think it'll put me in a good place in my future, which, in my opinion, thankfully it has. And yeah, the rest is history. So yeah, taking it all back, I really owe it back to my sister. And my parents were super excited about me getting in because they learned through my sister that it is such a great place. They wanted
to keep coming down.
Yeah, exactly. They're still looking for good reasons and excuses to come here.
Not too bad a place to visit. Yeah, I would say our stories are similar and happened in parallel, although I'm the oldest in my family, was looking at a lot of the Big Ten schools too. I had some friends that had gone here from my high school and some friends that are good friends today still that were going to go down to school with me. So that made it less scary to move to a new place. Had never been to Texas until I visited the school September of senior year, and just the thing was I thought it was just way too hot. I was like, I wasn't so impressed. I already knew, like, obviously the Texas Longhorns are one of the biggest brands. I love sports. Like, that all made sense. Business school, everything. But what I would have never known, and what I could have never known, was how much I'd love the city. I knew it was cool, but I didn't even scratch the surface. Yeah. And like, I could have never imagined that I would end up at a startup here, working for one during my senior year in town, and still to this day working for that same company. Built a great network of business-related contacts and friends and mentors, but also friends, from school and from folks that have just moved down here. The community here was just, everything. Community, food, music, outdoors, just the people I would have never known. And you just never know what one small decision will lead to. And you make such a big decision like that when you're 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
And it changes your whole life. But
It's a total leap of faith. Like, that's certainly what it felt like for me. And based off what you just said there, I can tell you can relate to that. But yeah, it's hard to imagine how life would have turned out otherwise, if I went to a different school, but it is just pretty much not a day passes where I'm not extremely grateful beyond words can express that my journey ended up leading me to the University of Texas, and beyond that, a whole second cycle of college in Austin. But that initial experience at the University of Texas was just, I am so forever grateful to be a Longhorn. It's, I can't explain how happy I feel with that decision.
Such pride that we all feel, I think. And yeah, each one, the university and Austin in and of themselves is amazing by themselves.
Yeah.
And we're so lucky to have experienced each in their own capacity. Like, each had their own 4 years, which I think is pretty cool. And it's just been interesting living as like a young adult, just down the road from the university, still going to the games and stuff, somewhat involved, but it's a totally different world.
Totally.
Where everybody, like you said earlier, young, ambitious, active, like open-minded people that you can surround yourself with. And that is something that I'm going to find tough to leave behind.
Totally agreed, especially moving to our new cities, or at least speaking for New York City, the, friendly open-mindedness that I've come to know and love in Austin. I don't know if it'll necessarily carry over to New York, but...
Got to wear your cowboy boots and Longhorn gear.
Yeah.
I know our friend Max is going to be doing that.
Yeah, I will too. I was saying this over the weekend when we were having a good reflective weekend, being that it's, your last weekend was your last one here in Austin, as a resident at least. But I have, little tie besides these past 8 years to the South, but I have like so deeply ingrained in me, like that Southern, country loving, type of mindset. And so I plan to keep the boots and the hat and the assless chaps and all of that good stuff.
You're going to be our boots on the ground in New York.
Exactly.
The assless chaps. Yeah. Great.
But you and I could keep going back and forth on that forever. So let's transition a little bit forward here. How do you feel? We just talked a lot about UT and started talking about this, but as a city, how do you feel about Austin, and I guess how things have changed in our tenure here and in our post-college days?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the pandemic on the podcast a lot. And like, that was an interesting time to transition from college to working. And for each of us, we went straight into work pretty much. And some people went to school, but like that was an interesting shift. And not that I want to focus on that part, but it was pretty crazy to see the number of people that flocked in.
Yeah.
Because people realized this is like, if you're going to be somewhere cooped up where you can't do as much, you might as well make it somewhere like Austin that has great outdoor activities. Not to mention they did open things up a lot more quickly here than some other places.
Right.
And so you saw an influx of so many people from different states and countries coming and buying into the lifestyle. And again, keep using the word open-minded. That's what embodies this place, is like, we would meet people, bring them into our circle, like whether they stuck around as a close friend or not, it was all about welcoming people in. And for us, being that we had that experience here and had our roots here, at least at the university, we could have stuck around and just been a friend group, closed off, but that's not how it was. Like, we brought in a lot of friends that would move here, whether they were in the tech startup space or not, a lot of which were, some of which weren't. And I just loved seeing that. We could talk about all the buildings that have come up since and the tech companies that have established a presence here. This place is not slowing down in growth anytime soon.
No, it is like Crane City right now. You look at downtown and around my neck of the woods where I live. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. The open-mindedness and just inviting nature of the city is one of my favorite components of it. And I always recommend it to anyone who hasn't visited before, and can't recommend it enough to any listeners that haven't visited before. It's an incredible city. The culture, the lifestyle, the constantly being active. The weather here is conducive to that, unlike some places up north. But yeah, obviously the food and the live music, it's just got really everything you could want. And I just like the lifestyle. I think New York, at least in my mind and from what I've heard and experienced is so fast paced. Everyone's got something to do, rushing by. And that's not exactly, if you want Austin to be fast paced, you can make it so. But in general, it's just slow enough where it's, it's still a big city. We're not moving bales of hay every day. That's all we do. But it's
just some days.
Yeah, only some days. But I just love this exact pace. I feel like fits my lifestyle, or at least my desired lifestyle, like perfectly.
Yeah. I think the people that don't like that lifestyle, they kind of realize it and then they might move away.
Yeah.
But the people that really get it, like everybody kind of buys into that culture. And it's just such an interesting collection of people. It's got that Texas flair, but you have so many people from different places that it's not just like cowboys and boots and jeans and country swing dance giants. And two-stepping all the time. Like, you can find that stuff. I thought that's what it was going to be like when I came down to Texas. But really, its own unique place. And, yeah, I mean, maybe this is a good way to transition into what we've seen in the tech space. Like I mentioned, big tech companies like Google, Apple, obviously Dell, homegrown here. You've got companies like Tesla, Meta,
Oracle.
establishing. Yeah, so many. Some that have been here a while, some that are really investing in it as a hub, and it makes a lot of sense. It's well positioned geographically, kind of in the middle. Most people can get here pretty easily. Airport's decent. We'll see about how that grows, and then just the state of Texas, just a great economy. I think the state of Texas is a great place to set up business for the short, medium, and long term, I think. And so those are the aspects that I think makes up a really good equation for this city. But was wondering how you think the VC space specifically has been experiencing that. You working at Alumni Ventures, getting to plug in a little bit here in addition to around the country, but how we've seen that develop over our years here.
Yeah, it's been incredible growth. We mentioned South by Southwest briefly, but just through the lens of even that, like the way that the city becomes overrun with just entrepreneurship and tech people and people from all different facets of the VC technology landscape. That's a good glimpse into how things have changed around here. But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back to our episode way back when, I think it was 68 with C.S. Freeland, who has had a longer tenure than us and seemingly is firmly planted here in Austin, and we're going to miss her. Hope to stay in touch. But she gave some numbers, just the sheer number of shops. I mean, I know about 20 years ago or so, there was probably 3 to 5 players in town, and there wasn't much game in town. But if there was, it was those 3 to 5 firms that were doing doing the business. Now it's expanded so rapidly, and it feels like a lot of VCs that aren't necessarily headquartered in Austin are establishing presences here. And on top of that, you and I have discussed this in the past on the podcast and off the podcast, but as opposed to New York and San Francisco, where obviously those are magnitudes larger in terms of volume in venture capital than Austin is, but those kind of feel like they're already at the top of the mountain. Like, I wouldn't say that they've peaked, but there's not much room for growth per se. On the flip side of that, Austin, even despite the recent explosion of tech and VC in the area, has so much room to grow. And that's what's been so exciting for both of us doing this podcast and me working in Alumni Ventures. Is Austin office is just, you can really actively feel like you're playing a part in that rise. And like, while neither of us are per se titans in the VC scene here, it's still just being able to participate in that growth has been amazing.
True. We've felt a lot of the growth. We've had some good conversations with people who have been around for a while, who have seen that growth longer than us. And I think you make a good point, is that there's still growth to happen, because I think a lot of it is by nature correlated with population growth.
Right.
And like investing in the city in a sense. And that's what CS talked a lot about, is how she's working with the government to invest in entrepreneurship and fueling that as a hub for entrepreneurs to come, right? And so that's typically, that has been Silicon Valley, but I think if you look at the population growth trends, more people are moving out of there than are moving in. And so that's probably one small element. You're never going to see a mass exodus of venture funding from Silicon Valley. That's always going to be the top spot. And there's something special about that for sure. And within the Northeast, New York and Boston, each has its own presence. But the Silicon Hills, man.
Yeah.
The Silicon Hills.
The rolling Silicon Hills.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's crazy to just look back at old pictures and see how much the skyline has changed. Like feels like it's doubled in width and quadrupled in height.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the skyscrapers in downtown. And with that comes the Meta presence, and Google and Oracle has their massive campus. And I think, I mean, it's intuitive. Those companies have contributed to the rise of tech and everything going on here in Austin, because when a company like Tesla moves here, think about all the smaller companies that are supplying Tesla with different parts of their process. Like those companies have to establish a presence here, and kind of just keeps network affecting,
Just
expanding outwards.
Just the talent pool too.
Yeah.
Like people are moving here who work for those companies. They're going to spin off their own companies inevitably. And so that to me is like a huge component, is like the talent that's coming here.
Yeah.
Like Larson Jensen said in a different context, but similar, like the talent pool is shifting away from the government, the best innovators working for the government, and more in private. Within the private, the best talent maybe moving to Austin because because of the lifestyle and the opportunities here at those big companies, bigger venture presence,
better cost of living.
Yeah, cost of living. I mean, there's a lot of aspects that make it ripe for huge continued growth with startups coming here to start and to get fundraising, and then maybe they'll raise elsewhere at the later stages. But for now, it's like one of the best, if not the best places to build a business.
Yeah, agreed. And before we transition over to talking a little more specifically on the podcast we've built and how that journey's gone, I know it's hard to sum up in one answer, and I know we've also been gushing about Austin for the past, couple questions, but what would you say you'll miss most about this city?
Yeah, it's hard to whittle down, but I think for me it has to be the people and like that open-mindedness. Yeah. Just the general vibe of people that we've met and the friends that we've had for a long time, but also the general open-mindedness of random people you meet at a networking event, or talking to people on the street at South by, or just meeting friends of friends that have moved here. I'm going to miss that part about it a lot. And just the entrepreneurial mindedness of people as well. Such a good group here that we've gotten to know. Obviously, some friends for life, and some friends that I've met in the last few months and few years that I wish I could continue to develop. But I'm always going to look forward to coming back and catching up with people.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Yeah.
I already have a few flights booked for some can't miss football games.
Yeah.
I know you do too.
Same.
But yeah, I'd say I agree with that. Just the general vibes and lifestyle out here. Like I said, if you want it to be a fast-paced, crazy city where you're always doing something fun, you surely can do that easily and for a fraction of the price than other big cities. But if you also just want to have a chill day at the lake and do pretty much nothing, just read a book or hang with your buddy, that's also very much a supported and common thing to do here in Austin. And yeah, I mean, shoot, man, I'm gonna miss everything about the city. Honestly, just the lifestyle and how active it is, the weather, it's all interrelated, I would say, and it's all just. Granted, you and I are very biased because we had just the most fun and amazing experience here at UT in those formative years, but I truly this is my favorite city. I have had the pleasure of having a bunch of visitors from home and other parts of life come visit, and they would agree that they think it's an amazing city. Again, excited for the next cities we're both moving on to, but damn, it hurts to be leaving Austin.
Yeah, it does. So we'll have to coordinate our timing so we can do some on-site recordings and catch up with some of the Pilgrims for some interviews. But yeah, I wanted to wrap up this sort of special dose with a bit more of a reflection on the journey building this show, this community, Venture Pill. I can still remember when we were thinking about, God, what are we going to name this thing? It took a long time, but I don't even know how we ended up there. We were maybe a little bit worried if it was going to get interpreted the wrong way, but people just kind of bought in, Venture Pill, your weekly dose. So many fun puns you can do. The logo came together. That was fun. And then just doing our first episode, the adage goes, you just got to got to do it. Just
Yep.
got to get it out there. And that's what we did. Episode 0 is still not public. It was terrible. It was in like the common room of your apartment building.
The rooftop. Yeah,
It's weird background noise, shitty microphone.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's fun to think back about that. But maybe you could just give, for the Pilgrims who don't know this full story, like the inspiration behind what we were thinking back then in the end of 2021.
Yeah, early 2022, end of 2021. A lot of thoughts racing in my mind right now. Before I forget it, I think Venture Smoothie was in the mix for a potential name. Yeah,
a nice blend of startups.
Yeah, but I think the weekly dose became a slogan that listeners could rally behind, and I know you and I love all the puns that we've spun off from that. But yeah, like you said earlier, I don't think either of us ever envisioned that we would be podcasters, right? Like, at least speaking for myself, it's still sometimes like I'll be on my Instagram and see a Venture Pill post come up and I'm like, oh my God, that's me. Like, pretending to know what I'm saying about this company or whatever. And my friends say the same thing sometimes, but the real inspiration for me, I will give a shout out to, at the time it was Robin Hood Snacks. Now it's T-Boy, the best one yet, but they kind of have a similar vibe to us where it's two college friends that started a podcast. It's more about the stock market news than venture capital, but they make it really digestible and break down these complex companies that have whatever headlines that they're making, but also mix in a ton of fun and jokes and puns like we do. Mm-hmm. So I really loved what they did. And I was like, if I were to theoretically do a podcast, I'd like it to be a similar kind of vibe as them. But furthermore, specifically for Venture Pill, for me, really, I was just starting or about to start my job in the VC space with Alumni Ventures. I had just spent about a year and a half post-college working for an asset manager, kind of traditional finance role here in Austin. And I found in my experience with that finance role, like, I just could not get myself to spend time outside of my job duties, like learning more about the space. Like, I just didn't really have that motivation, and I knew it'd be good for my career, but I just couldn't force myself to have that passion. I knew from what I knew about venture capital that I was a lot more passionate and excited about how VC works and the dynamic variety of crazy companies you come across any given day or week. But yeah, I really just figured it'd be a way to force me into keeping up with the latest in venture capital. And it certainly has, right? We're always learning about all these new companies that are doing awesome stuff and has forced us to learn a little bit about them. As I mentioned, the network has been a side benefit that I did not anticipate, but it's been amazing as well. And quickly we realized, like, oh, wait, there is a networking component to this. Like, we've got a brand that we can build from the ground up here. And yeah, I think just building on that, I think we've both talked about this, and it's a question we ask most of our interviewees, but I realized that venture capital is a relatively siloed industry. And even in Macomb School of Business, one of the top business schools in the world, I didn't really learn a lick about venture capital or how it works. I know you did a great job of getting involved in some extracurricular venture capital related clubs and whatnot, but I did not. And so it was always just this kind of sexy but from far away type industry that I wanted to sink my teeth into and force myself to learn and have a little bit of a side project, side passion for, and also to help others, maybe, current students at the time or future students or older people, whoever may be, just help people learn more about this space that is super cool and, plays a role in the future of our country and the future of technology. Like, it is so important to the financial structure of the country and the world in general, not just financial, technology, everything. But yeah, so just wanted to help other people kind of break down that wall as well and learn more about the space.
Yeah. I will say I didn't think I would have a podcast either, but I did have a radio show in high school.
Nice.
So when we were deciding, I was like, okay, it's not so scary. Like, I know how audio leveling works and like the intro and the outro. Like, I knew kind of how that
Camera angles.
Yeah. So and don't give me shit if you think it's poor quality, but we've gotten good feedback. You know, I'm the one editing these. Brandon does the clips. Like, we have not outsourced a single bit of that. Like, we take pride in that part of it too. So that made it a little bit easier to envision, like, okay, I know how to like edit stuff. Like, that could be the scary part for some people. And now there's probably tools that can do it for you, but we've gotten in that groove. Yeah. I think I wanted to take what I was doing with the Private Equity and Venture Capital Club. Like you alluded to, I started that club at UT because there were no opportunities for undergrads to learn about VC. and it was a great experience. And I see this as the extension of that for anyone, to learn about the cool companies out there, to learn about the industry lingo, hear it from the horse's mouth when we interview founders and investors. And I think, the common best practice or like best advice for starting a podcast is like, you want to find your niche. I feel like we struggled a little bit at the beginning because we wanted to go broad, and we ended up going pretty broad. And we were like a little bit wary of like, is that the right thing to do? Like, who are we targeting? Well, it is really pretty much anybody who's interested in venture, who may not know as much, that wants a kind of a casual way to learn about companies and potentially help them get into this world, which is a little bit, like you said, hard to get into if you don't know where to start. That's why we always ask the guests, like, what's your best advice for those looking to get into venture or start their own business? Is sometimes you just need someone to tell you, hey, just go for it. Or, hey, here's how you should do networking.
Yeah, ask questions, things like that.
There's a lot of great advice that we've solicited over the interviews. And that's kind of what we did with the club, too. So I see this as an extension of that, an opportunity for people to really learn about it and take advantage of our network, too. We've helped some people. Like, we've heard a couple of examples that we've made an impact on people that have reached out, and that's so cool.
Yeah.
I don't think we were really expecting that would happen.
Yeah, that's been one of the most rewarding components, is when we do get those handful of people that, whether it's listeners or people we've interviewed, that somehow minor or majorly helped them in their journey and whatever they're doing. It's just like, that is so rewarding for us. We don't make money off of this. We spend a lot of time into it, or we put a lot of time into it. So truly the best reward we could get is just actually hearing that we did help somebody.
Yeah. I mean, people that I went to high school with, I can think of a few that just saw it, because a lot of what we shared is on Instagram with our personal, friend networks. And that can be scary for us. Like, I remember thinking like, oh, do I really want to post about my podcast? Like, oh, this guy has a podcast. He's in tech sales. He lives in Austin. Like, fully the stereotype.
The mold.
Yeah. But I think we've owned it really nicely, and our friends, if they are friends, and if they truly are our friends, they've supported it and thought it was cool. And even people that don't know or have really an interest, still supporting it, like maybe our moms.
Definitely shout out our moms.
Yeah.
My mom, number one venture pilgrim, I'd say. But yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think it is making me remember something we resonated with during the Floaties interview just a couple episodes ago, which is, we've built this brand and we've really always kept it true to ourselves. Like, we're not out there doing things that other companies are doing. And obviously no hatred, especially if it works, then by all means, good for you. Glad it works. But I feel like it's just been awesome building out. Both of us are two, creative, generally funny people. And so building out this extension of that brand with Venture Pill and kind of keeping it true to that sense has also been a blast. And also just seeing how that develops over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been fun, like, keeping the personal flair going and like making that intertwined with the brand, which the Floaties guys have done nicely too. But I think we've done a good job. Like, it's been so fun, like doing all the puns and the awards and the kind of the creative stuff, and having a good laugh throughout. I think it's made it a lot more sustainable for us, because we've done 120 straight episodes.
Yeah,
like, that is crazy. We've gone through a lot, whether family stuff or not, and we've been there for each other, and the accountability between the two of us has kept it going. Like you said, the forcing function of why you originally wanted to do it, I viewed it the same way. And if we were doing it by ourselves, or maybe with someone else who we didn't, we weren't in lockstep with, it probably wouldn't have lasted this long. Yeah,
and so you totally agreed. Well said, partner. Segueing to our next question, spent a little time reflecting on how we got to know each other. That's a quick story. And then also building on that, how co-hosting and collaborating and co-founding, building this podcast has strengthened and changed the element of our friendship.
Yeah, I feel like our friendship was strong beforehand, but like when you're in the foxhole, 3 to 5 hours a week on average, like outside of where we already spend like a good amount of time together with our other friends too, sports, watching sports, hanging out, making and going out to meals, all that sort of stuff outside of the podcast is already like a lot of time to spend with a close friend. And then you add this on. And I think it was also cool alongside our partnership. We had two of our other good friends, Brett and Jordan, who have been working extremely hard on real estate deals and investing on the side. So seeing them do that, like knowing that we have our thing, again, going back to the community and the type of people here, like that made it very easy to lean into. And again, our friends supporting us. But all that to say, like when you're in the foxhole with someone for 3 to 5 hours a week and a lot of like constant texting, communication, ideating, that makes it a whole different relationship that I don't have with anybody else.
Yeah. No, totally agreed. I mean, it has certainly been helpful to have a circle of friends that are similarly motivated to have a side hustle outside of work. And, you know, your network is your net worth, so to speak, as the old saying goes. But yeah, it has forced us to communicate and hang out a whole lot more, 3 to 5 hours a week. But that's not including like our 100th episode, which took us several hours, or our South by Southwest street interviews, which was 2, 6 to 8 hour days in the March heat. With a bunch of equipment, just, walking around. And, and I was thankful to have you there, and I hope it's the same likewise, because that is not, I don't think if I was there alone, I would have stayed motivated for quite that long. So just being able to feed off each other's, again, creativeness, but also our ability to hunker down and get serious and really spend time learning things. Our episodes, let's say they're typically 20 minutes. That means we have 6 minutes or so to talk about each company. And sometimes that's really easy to do, but sometimes you have to process a ton of information, especially when it's deep in the science, blockchain, over our head areas of tech and VC, where it's like, it requires a lot of work and helping each other out, knowing that I could always rely on you if I am having a busy week or going through whatever personal stuff, and vice versa. But real quick on how we got to know each other, I remember it pretty vividly, which was during orientation. I think it was July 4th weekend in Austin. And I was like there with my mom in line, I think on like the quad or right by the tower, and just ran into you and our other buddy, Alan, and another friend, Amelia, who's a good Pillgrim. Shout out to her. But I was just like, who are these weird talking Chicago folks? But no, I truly knew, I knew like from there that I didn't know that we'd become such close friends at the time, but I knew like these are great people, salt of the earth, and specifically you. And, it was great to get close throughout college and in our second cycle of college as well.
Yeah. No, it's wild to think back, like, again, with like the going to school, never knowing what I would get into. It's like you're wide-eyed freshman, you're meeting all these people, you just never know what it's going to turn into. It was the same thing, like meeting you and a lot of the guys in our fraternity, like that we've remained so close. We got so lucky. But yeah, that's so crazy to think back on. That was nearly 8 years ago. Here we are today. It seems that most of my closest friends from college and afterwards have been people I've lived with. But you're the only one that I've never lived with that's like a super close friend. Maybe a couple others, but I think it's that level of companionship that we've achieved through a side hustle of spending extra time like you would with a roommate.
Yeah. Plus just so many, on top of being close friends for 8 years, so many extra laughs and funny moments and cool things. It's not like we've made it by the standards that other people might say they made it, but I'm thinking about the beer pong tournament and doing the interview out on the boat and South by Southwest and the handful of VC events that we've been able to go to together. It's just like those are some core memories that I'll remember of my time in Austin for years to come, if not forever.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like that's not necessarily something that just your average. I wouldn't expect that if I wasn't doing this podcast and developing this intimate, professional / obviously immense friendship relationship with you.
Yeah. No, it's fun to partner with someone like. Sure, we could have theoretically done this by ourselves, but it would not have been as successful. It wouldn't have been as funny or fun, and it wouldn't have lasted so long.
Yeah.
The accountability that we've had with each other, I think, and we haven't really pushed ourselves to burnout either. We've been there during the ebbs and flows of our work and personal life. Like, yeah, it's gone perfectly. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes, like when we're both in different cities, but we've done a lot of that already. And I don't really think it will slow us down. If anything, your focus may turn to business school and my focus may turn eventually to starting my own company or more towards work or whatever, being with family. But I think we'll be able to keep this going as long as we want to. And when we say we don't want to anymore, then so be it.
Yeah, right off into the sunset together.
Yeah.
You mentioned accountability there. Use that as a transition for next question being some key lessons that we've learned about podcasting, content creation, or entrepreneurship. And I think accountability, holding each other accountable. You and I have forged a good partnership where, you know, sometimes one of us may not want to do something or, you know, just being a little bit lazy, lackadaisical, and then just for the sake of holding accountable and not letting the other person down, it's like, okay, I'm speaking for myself now, but but it's like, okay, like to not let Sam down and, you know, keep our strong partnership intact here. I'm going to make sure I do what I said I was going to do.
Yeah, we were never uncomfortable with like making a suggestion or an ask of the other, like where appropriate. And I think we worked really hard to put systems in place and figure out what each of us was good at so that we could really just keep this as a well-oiled machine. That took a little bit, but honestly, we figured it out pretty quickly, like where I was going to focus my efforts on a weekly basis, our systems, you know, whatever, our reminders to do certain things with the social media, and then like scheduling. Like there's just a lot of work that goes into it to make it smooth. And that's the same with entrepreneurship too. I think this has been like a good intro, like entrepreneurship 101, because, you know, we're not trying to make money really. And so I think that's another thing is like we haven't poured in full, you know, absolute balls to the wall effort on growing this as a business, but the elements of the business, the structure, some of the branding, the process, we've learned a lot about that.
Totally. I know both of us have the entrepreneurial itch, and we were riffing on business ideas last week, which was a fun conversation as always. But I've told this to other people, like, yes, one day we hope to start a company, but in the meantime, this has been our little entrepreneurial baby. Like I have cared about it extremely much. Like it feels like a company I founded, and while we don't have too much skin in the game in terms of money poured in or investors or anything like that, I'm still up sometimes late at night thinking about it. I know I've shot you over a couple, you know, middle of the night texts just for ideas I've had or concerns or whatever it may be. But yeah, it's really been a great way to scratch that entrepreneurial itch and figure out, you know, iterating through things, seeing what works. Sometimes we have to drop things, sometimes we don't, making decisions. Like, it feels like we've been running a company, and it's been an awesome experience in that regard for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned so much from the guests too, and from the people we've networked with.
Yeah,
you know,
networking's been big.
Yeah, with regard to entrepreneurship, there's a lot of things we can apply still to this business if we wanted to really lean into it. But I think you and I have held true to ourselves throughout this whole time, which is we're doing this for fun. We're doing this to help people. And if we can make some money along the way, and if it like grows, you know, with the effort we're willing to put in, then great. If it doesn't really grow so much, that's totally fine. But it is a tough game out there. And I think if we had the mindset of, oh, if we don't have this amount of listeners or, you know, whatever stats or sponsors and advertisements and making some money, then we've failed. It was never about that. So I think it was going to be a success from the start as long as we kept it going.
It's true. Yeah. And so I'd say building on that, some entrepreneurial skills that we've both definitely developed or strengthened here is attention to detail, extreme ownership. Like we were just saying, both of us care a shit ton about this podcast, even though, you know, we're not running it quite like a business. But then circling back to maybe lessons learned about podcasting and content creation, I'll start with content creation, consistency, right? Like you got to just put volume out there, and maybe not all of it will be amazing all the time, but just getting yourself out there as frequently as possible. And then just taking a sidebar on content creation in general, I think you feel the same way, but I am such a firm believer in the creator economy in the future. And we're continuing to see more influencers be starting companies or venture capital firms or having some role to play in the startup space. And I think that is here to stay. In a few years, being a content creator will be as respected and high paying a job as some of the, you know, higher paying doctor, lawyer type roles. I mean, you already see the extreme end, like the Mr. Beasts and the Dude Perfects, like they're making as much as, you know, professional athletes. Like they're extreme examples of people making money. But I think businesses will continue to realize that one of the best ways to get in touch with the Gen Z and younger kind of current, we call it the TikTok generation, but the general, let's say 28 and younger generation moving forward is by pairing with influencers and having a social presence and being active on social media, creating content of some form. So just being a creator in this economy, while it's been extremely on the rise for the past couple of years, has been interesting to see. And yeah, I think regardless of how long the pill lasts or we start a new company one day, whatever it is, like I have come to learn and strongly believe that content creation will have a major role to play in the future of business and just society, really.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think we've been a little bit back and forth all over the place in this episode, but like tying it back to like another unexpected thing that I would have never thought we'd get out of this was like learning the ins and outs of content creation and best practices and how to make clips out of, you know, how to make use out of the content we've already created and reuse it, and SEO, and just how to write better. Like all these things are skills that we've been building, whether we knew it or not, that are going to apply in whatever business we're involved in. I know it's helped me in my job in sales pretty adjacent in terms of communication and speaking eloquently. Writing, a lot of what we've been doing is writing, and then we'll talk about our writing. So it's all been an extremely helpful exercise in content creation.
Even like research and discovery, like again, taking these companies that are pretty complicated and having to break it down, and just the process of knowing where to look and what keywords, you know, you might be looking for to be a story that we would want to tell for 6 minutes of podcast real estate. That's another skill. To add to it, I mentioned consistency, like, you know, plenty of weekends would rather be doing something else, but it's just like we've been going for 120 weeks straight now.
Can't break it.
I will be damned if
who's
we break
gonna
it.
fall first.
But another thing, and I think this is important for businesses, especially small ones that are just starting, is the ability to work asynchronously. So, you know, you and I, we'd still definitely communicate pretty much every day about podcast stuff, but I feel like we're at a point where, you know, when you're about to publish an episode, you know where to look, and I've already had that work done for a day. And while I'm doing that work, you're responding to some emails. And while you're responding to emails, I'm doing social media. And it's like partially within that is just trust that I know that you're spending good time on, you know, doing the stuff that you focus on with the pill. Whatever it takes, maybe I'm up late or you're up early doing something, like just by the time it's publishing day or interview day, whatever deadline we're facing, like things are ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's the process. Like, it's truly been a well-oiled machine. And yeah, that's what's really going to put us in a position to keep this going really without hiccups. Yeah, I think we'll see how our lives change. Hard to know exactly. We got a lot of change coming, and I know you especially adding a lot more to your plate. So, but we're in a position to keep this rolling. We love doing this, so as long as that isn't the case, we're gonna keep it rolling. And we know this has been a long-winded, maybe more of an exercise for us to just get it all out, which has been cool, and a different style of an episode for us. But to wrap it up, wanted to know a couple proud moments. We've mentioned some, but milestones, achievements that come to mind when thinking back on the pod journey.
Yeah, it's a good question, because there are certainly some big ones that come to mind, but I also simultaneously feel like I'm forgetting the small victories and small wins that, you know, are easy to forget, but in the moment are kind of exactly what you need to hear. But so with that said, some of the biggest milestones, number one, I'd say has to be the 100th episode. I thought the actual episode was amazing, the way we did it, the way it turned out, the dressed up in suits, and just our whole...
First time I wore a suit in so long.
Yeah, just our whole process with that one. And that took a good, full day of working and writing it and recording it. But just getting to 100 episodes, I remember way back when we interviewed Landon Campbell, he mentioned a stat that I've become increasingly privy to, but it's that like 90% or maybe 99% of podcasts fold after 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. So for us to, be able to get to 100, and we're still going strong here at 120, but just to hit that milestone was such a proud moment. And again, I thought the episode came out great. We really got to let our personalities shine through.
Maybe a little too much.
I think it was a fun one. We got some good feedback.
It can be a serious game out there, and I think we allowed ourselves to just celebrate it how we would want to celebrate it.
Exactly.
And people appreciate it. There's some good clips that we got out of it.
Totally, and I think a lot of people have become listeners of The Pill because they do like our general podcast personalities and lightheartedness. So that one was for them and for us to have some fun, celebrate our milestone. I'd say on top of that, the recent one, podcasting from a boat with the floaties guys. I mean, it was an awesome interview, but also just to be able to take our podcast on water and be talking about how much we love Austin on a beautiful day in Austin in the middle of Lake Austin. It's just like, that was that was
a culmination.
Yeah. Take a sip of beer, tastes extra good in that moment. Just like that. That was awesome. And then lastly for me, and I'm blanking on specifics, but just all the random Pillgrim love we've received over the years. Some from, college friends that we don't necessarily stay in touch with all the time, definitely still good friends with, but seeing them, tell us oh yeah, I've been seeing your clips, they're awesome. It's great. And we've had even total kind of cold call emails come out, people saying that they really appreciate what we're doing and love the show. And that's been super rewarding. And again, we've had people saying that we've helped them kind of learn more about VC, maybe break into it. But yeah, just all the random instances of people showing us love and, being grateful and giving us good feedback has been always super appreciated. And just we made it, or it feels like we made it when a random stranger across the country reaches out via Instagram or email or LinkedIn, whatever it may be, to, take the time and express how much they're enjoying the show. It's hard to put into words how much that means.
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, sometimes surprised. Sometimes we're just in the thick of it, doing it, going through. We don't hear from someone for a while, and that just makes all the difference and reminds us, oh yeah, people are listening out there. Talk to us.
Seriously.
But I think, one thing that you made me think of is also we were surprised how many interview guests we secured because they reached out to us. And I thought we were going to be the ones reaching out all the time. Yeah. But we got a lot of very cool opportunities that came to us because we put ourselves out there. And those were some of them were some of our best episodes. In addition, though, you mentioned random people we don't keep in touch with as much. It's just been so rewarding to see the people closest to us, our friends and family, being fully supportive of what we're doing. Some families might be podcasts, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? They don't understand, but even some of my friends and family who don't care about startups or maybe don't listen to podcasts too much. Yeah. They think it's cool and they support it and they like hearing about it. And I think it's just because we've leaned into it with the full behavior of our passions.
No. Yeah, no, I totally agree, and definitely couldn't wrap up this episode without giving a shout out to our family and friends that have been so supportive. And I still get a weekly text from mostly my mom, but also occasionally family members love this week's episode. This company was so cool. I thought this was interesting. So funny when you guys did this. Yeah. Whatever it may have been. And yeah, I think, when we started, we didn't really expect to have much of a fan base, not really sure who would be out there listening. And so for our friends and family to rally around it has been awesome. But also what's crazy about podcasting, and sorry to keep circling us around here, but our social media has gotten hundreds of thousands of views. We've got only a couple hundreds friends combined. So it's just like there are so many people out there that have no idea who we are, like no interaction or relation
That's
with
wild.
us, and they're listening to us and engaging. I actually, quick anecdote, I was giving a speech at my sister's wedding, and was a little bit nervous, right? First big like public speaking, family's all there type thing. And one thing I did to calm myself down, whether it was, valid logic or not, was just like, Brandon, like hundreds of thousands of people have heard your voice, like talking about random things. Like this is, if you put all the people that we've spoken to either through this podcast or social media or something in between, that would fill a stadium. That would fill DKR, UT Stadium. So yeah,
that helped you?
That helped me.
Okay. Because sometimes you just can't stop the heart from beating out of your chest.
Oh, surely, definitely, throat went into my heart and hands were shaking, but mentally it was just like, okay, yeah, I've actually spoken to a much bigger room of people than this wedding.
Yeah, it's wild. This is the day and age we live in, the opportunity that anybody has to do something like that for whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
Whatever they want to talk about or content they want to make, music, whatever it may be. I'm glad we've done this. I'm glad we can say we have 120 plus episodes under our belt.
Yep.
We have a track record of proven success for something that we've sustained on a weekly basis for 2.25 years and counting. Now 1,000 episodes doesn't seem so
Somehow,
crazy.
Yeah, we're chipping away pretty well.
Yeah, by that time we'll be interviewing our kids.
I mean, you see the big podcasts like Joe Rogan or My First Million, whatever it may be, and they're in the thousands, tens of thousands of episodes, and that still is like, holy crap, that is so far away. But now that we've got a couple drops in the bucket, it's like I could see this continuing on into the thousands as well. And whether it's just an excuse for you and I to be able to talk and hang out and discuss business and startups, or become something more than that, we shall see. But either way, like,
still the early innings.
Yeah.
Still the early innings. It's a lot of game left to be played, but it's exciting to think about the chapter ahead for us personally, professionally, and keeping this podcast going is going to be fun still. A good way for us to keep in touch too.
Exactly.
And we love all of y'all for listening this far. This is one of our longer episodes probably, but a good forum for us to just dump out all these feelings and thoughts, and
that feels good.
Reflection, learnings. I'll piece together.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Real nice as you always do. But this was some great podcast therapy, journaling type. That was the vibe I got from this episode. Yeah. I'm glad, you and I have always had, I think, similar feelings about how this has been, and it's been mostly only good things. But finally verbalize them and put them out to the universe, and to all of our loyal fans and friends and family and new fans that we'll make in the coming years. I'm glad we were able to do this, especially in one of our last weeks here in Austin together.
Yeah.
It's really, while that chapter is ending, I'm glad that this chapter will continue on, the Venture Pill podcast, because I don't know if I could handle both chapters ending at the same time.
No, can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Yeah. Well, all right, Pilgrims. Thanks for joining us on this ride. We will see y'all next week.
As always, thank you all for listening and for your loyalty. Truly love and appreciate everyone out there. And I also appreciate you, partner. This was a blast. It's been a blast building this together, and to infinity and beyond.
Back at you, partner. Well said.
Thank you, partner.
As you say. Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another dose of startups and venture capital. And as always, we appreciate our pilgrims spreading the word about the show. Share with your friends and help someone else make the pilgrimage. See you next time.
She told me that she only bumps my music when she's lonely. Thinks my vibe's a little low-key, okie dokie, that's alright, but wait, I don't know how to do